Yo, what's up, my fellow Immortals, and welcome back to The Source. I'm your host, Russell Nash, and this is the #1 spot for Highlander, the card game. This video is going to be the first video in a series that I'm making. It's going to be called Immortal Spotlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each Immortal in the game in this series, and I'm going to talk about the best cards that come in their sets. And I figured the best Immortal to start this series off with would be none other than Slan Quince. He was the first Immortal in the television series that faced off against Duncan as well as Connor. He's a really cool Immortal with a really awesome power, and I'm really looking forward to this series. We're going to talk a little bit about the cards. We're not going to go through every card in each Immortal sets. I'm just going to go through which ones that I think are the best cards in each set. So I figured this would be a cool way to start the series off. We'll talk a little bit about the cards and what they do. So without further ado, let's take a look at what Slan has to offer. So right off the bat, we're going to just take a look at the Slan Quince persona. Now, when you use Slan Quince as your persona, his persona power is that you do not have to make an exertion to make an attack a power blow. So that's pretty self-explanatory. That basically means that every single attack that can be made a power blow is going to be a power blow. It's a very strong power. Slan was known for being a powerhouse. He's a brute. He doesn't have a lot of strength. He doesn't have a lot of, he doesn't have a lot of empathy, reason. He really is not that kind of character. He's not very agile. In the series, he was more of like a brute, a powerhouse. All of his attacks were super heavy. So that's why his power is basically just any attack that you can make a power blow, he's going to make that a power blow without an exertion. So already pretty cool to start off with that Immortal persona power. So I thought that was a cool power to give to Slan, very well deserving. So the very first card that we're going to talk about that comes in Slan sets is going to be an edge card. And this card is going to be called Heavy Hitter. And basically it says play in conjunction with a power blow. It says your opponent cannot make a hard exertion to make a power block against that attack. And if you retrieve that card from your discard pile, you lose your next attack opportunity. So this card's pretty cool. It's basically saying, hey, I'm going to throw a power blow at you, and you're not going to be able to make a hard exertion to play a block and make that block a power blow. And Slan's all about making power blows. So that's a decent card. It's definitely one of the best cards in his set, and that's why I thought it was worth mentioning and throwing that in there. So that's definitely a card to take a look at when you're going to build a Slan deck, is definitely throw that Heavy Hitter in there. It's an edge card. Very good card. So the next card we're going to highlight in Slan's set, it's an event, and it's called Intimidate. Basically, it says your opponent cannot play an attack from their hand during their next turn. And you cannot use any retrieval effects to retrieve this card from their discard pile. So basically, that's going to allow you to throw down the event, and it's basically saying, hey, I'm going to power blow, right? And you're going to deal with it, and then next turn, you're not going to be able to attack. So unless you have a way around that event, they're not going to be able to attack you back, which is pretty strong. That's why I threw it in there. I think it's one of Slan's best cards. It is an event, so it is a special card. I definitely think it's worth taking a look at if you're going to build a Slan deck. I do believe that it is one of his better cards that come in his set. Like I said, we're not going to go over every card, but Intimidate, definitely worth mentioning when it comes to the Slan Quince set and persona. So I would take a look at that card if you're going to try to build a Slan set. Slan's got some really cool cards, and this event card is definitely going to help you out along the battle. The next card that we're going to highlight when it comes to Slan set is a card called Taunt. Now, this is an event. Now, Taunt basically says your opponent cannot play any special cards during their next turn. And if this card is in your opening hand, you can put it into play at the beginning of your turn. So you're not playing the card, you're putting it into play. So if it's in your hand, okay, you draw your opening hand and this card is in your hand, during your turn, you can put this card into play. That's a little different than playing a card, right? So when you play a card, your opponent has different options they can do to mitigate what that card's going to do to them. When you put that card into play, though, those options become significantly smaller. So that's definitely a solid keyword when it comes to playing this card, or putting this card into play. I would definitely keep in mind. That's why I put it in there as one of his best cards. Number one, they can't play a special card during their turn, as well as they're not really going to be able to have many options to deal with it because you put that card into play. So if you do put that card into play, you can play an additional persona-specific special card during your turn, but you cannot put into play or play more than 2 special cards, regardless of effect, while this card is in play, right? So if you put this card into play, you can play an additional persona-specific special card as well as that taunt, right? So that's pretty strong. That's one of the main reasons why I put it in there as one of his best cards. It's restricting your opponent from playing a special card, and special cards are very, very strong. And I think that this card definitely deserves to be in his top cards. So very good card. That's why it went in there in the Immortal Spotlights. For some of the best cards in his set. The next card we're going to talk about in Slan's set is fairly straightforward. It's called Shooting Blade, and this is a ranged attack. So it's very simple. It's a ranged attack. It's doing 4 damage. And if you remember in the series, in the first episode where he's battling either Duncan or Connor, he shoots out at the end of his sword that shooting blade that came out at the end of his, where the pommel is at the end of his sword. So this card is very, very strong. It's doing 4 damage. It's a ranged attack, so it's very hard to deal with. It's definitely one of his best cards. So if you're building a Slan deck, I would definitely throw ranged attack in there. The next card we're going to talk about in Slan's set is called Overextended Attack. So it is a special attack. Now, Overextended Attack says cost, right? That's the keyword. It says your opponent must discard a dodge to play a dodge from their hand against this attack, right? So, and also the card text says your opponent's first attack during their turn cannot be dodged, right? And you can play this attack after playing an evade backaway. Normally, evade backaways, you can only play ranged attacks after you play that defense. But this overextended attack is going to allow you to play after you play a dodge, like an evade backaway, right? So this is a pretty good attack. I think it's one of his best persona-specific attacks because it's a cost effect, right? So your opponent is going to have to discard a dodge to play a dodge from their hand against this attack, right? So it's also giving you a stipulation to where their first attack cannot be dodged, but if you've built your deck correctly, you're not going to really be worried about that. So you can play your evade back away, you can play your overextended attack, and the attack has within the card text that they have to discard a dodge to play a dodge from their hand. So that's a pretty strong attack, within just itself, and if you add some extra effects to it, it's going to be very difficult to deal with. So that's why I threw it in there as one of the best cards that comes in Slan's set. So let's take a look at the next one. So the next card we're going to look at in Slan's set is called Brute Strength. This is an edge card, right? So Brute Strength says this card's attributes do not count towards your deck construction limits, right? So it has all of the attributes that you can find in the game, and they don't count towards your strength, your empathy, your toughness, your reason, your agility, etc., right? So they don't count towards the limit of how many cards with those abilities or those attribute gems that you can put in your deck. So it's basically just a free slot. It's not going to count towards any of those limitations, right? So basically what this card is allowing you to do is you play it in conjunction with a basic block, and that block is now a power block without an exertion, right? So that's pretty strong. It's an edge card. It's a very good card, one of the best ones in this set. So if your opponent's making power blows back at you, you can play this Brute Strength edge card, and it's a free power block without an exertion. That's pretty good, because Slan's power, as you can remember, is you can make any attack that can be legally made a power blow without an exertion, right? So you're going to power blow, you throw it on this edge card, Brute Strength, and you can now play a basic block as a power block without an exertion. Definitely one of the best cards that come in his set. The very last but not least card that I think is the best in Slan's set, it is an edge card, and this card is titled Bull Rush, right? So it basically says play in conjunction with an overextended attack. You can play that attack as an additional attack, and your opponent loses an attack for each extended attack, overextended attack you play that turn. So essentially what that means is you're going to play your first attack, right? And then you're going to play Bull Rush with another overextended attack, right? So you're basically playing that Bull Rush card is allowing you to play an additional attack, okay? And what that's doing is that it's taking away your opponent's attack opportunity for each overextended attack you play. So if you know your opponent is only going to be playing one attack every single turn at you, boom, you throw out your first attack, you play Bull Rush, and you play an overextended attack, and now they lose their first attack opportunity, so they're not going to really be able to attack you back unless they have a way around that. But it's hard to deal with, so I think that's one of the main reasons why I thought this would be a really, really good card to include in some of the best cards that come in Slan set. So I think all of these cards are definitely worth taking a look at when you're going to build a Slan deck. I would definitely have at least one of these, maybe more in each Slan deck. So these are some of the best cards that come in his set. The other ones are decent, but these are the ones that stood out to me. That's kind of why I went ahead and spotlighted them, because they deserve a little more attention than the other ones. That's why I think that these are the best cards that come in Slan's Persona set, right? These are the cards that come with his set. So if you're looking to build a Slan deck, I would definitely take a look at all of these cards that we talked about in this video and see what you can do to make that work. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the weapons that I think pair well when you're using the Slan Quince Persona. First would be the Greatsword, right? Slan has his own Greatsword. Now, the Greatsword essentially is a very powerful weapon, right? Now, the Greatsword is going to allow you to, when you make a power blow, your opponent, if they make a power block, they have to discard the top 3 cards of their endurance for each power block that they make, right? That's one of the main reasons why to use the Greatsword, right, with Slan, because he's going to be making free power blows. So when your opponent makes a power block, because of the text of the Greatsword, the upside of the weapon, they have to burn 3 cards, or excuse me, discard 3 cards from the top of their endurance. So let's just say, for example, you make a power blow and they throw down their block and they say, okay, I'm going to make an exertion to make that a power block, right? So they go ahead and they discard the top 5 cards of their endurance or their deck. Plus, now, because of the Greatsword text, they have to discard an additional 3 because they made a power block. So you're essentially burning those cards from your opponent's deck. You know, you're milling them out. So it's a very powerful weapon when you're using the Slan Quince Persona. So I think that's also one of the better weapons to use when you're going to be using Slan Quince as your immortal throughout the battle. Another weapon that you should take a look at when you're going to use Slan Quince is the Promo Broadsword. Now, the Promo Broadsword's text is, you can retrieve 1 card for every dodge your opponent played last turn, right? So if you're going to be making power blows and you're worried about your opponent just dodging everything, this is going to kind of put a stop to that, right? So your opponent's going to think twice, because every single time you make a power blow and they dodge, your Promo Broadsword is going to allow you to bring a card back from your discard pile and place it in your hand, right? So that's going to really make your opponent think, hey, do I really, really want to be, dodging so much, because my opponent is just going to keep bringing a card back from his discard every single time I play a dodge, right? So what that means for you is that you essentially throw down a power blow and you can say, hey, you can dodge this if you want. There's no restrictions on dodging it, but if you do, I'm going to bring a card back from my discard pile to my hand. So that's really, really strong. I think that weapon, as well as the Greatsword, pair very well when you're using the Slan Quince Persona. Another card that I think can enhance a Slan deck is a generic event, and it's called Challenge, right? So Challenge says no dodges may be played until the end of your next turn. So that basically means you throw down a power blow or whatever attack you want to use that turn, and then you throw down a challenge, right? So you're saying, hey, no dodges can be played until the end of my next turn. So that's essentially going to make your opponent power block unless they have a way to get around that challenge card. So that also comes into play if you're going to be using the Greatsword weapon of choice, right? Because the Greatsword says, like, if you remember, if they power block one of your power blows, they got to discard the top 3 cards of their endurance, right? So that's basically forcing them to make a decision. Do I want to use some cards in my toolbox to get around the challenge event? Or do I want to go ahead and make a power block and then, with 5 cards from my endurance, and then another 3 more from my endurance because of the text of the Greatsword. So that's definitely a good generic card to use in a Slan deck, and I would definitely take a look at that card if you're thinking about building a Slan deck. There are many ways to build a Slan deck, but I think that's a very good generic card if you're worried about your opponent dodging all the time. The last card that I think would go good with a Slan deck is a location. Now, the location is Catwalk. Now, Catwalk says the only dodge that may be played is a back away. Now, those are the only dodges that Slan has, right? He only has back aways. So if you're on the Catwalk, you can only play a back away as your dodge, right? And those are the only dodges that Slan has. He has the back away. Now, other Immortals that are more agile than Slan, they're going to have ducks, they're going to have jumps, they're going to have counters, things like that. They're going to have evades. Now, Slan isn't very agile. He's a brute, so he's only going to be backing away from attacks. This location pairs very well with Slan because that's the only kind of dodge that he has. So you throw down your location. The only dodge that can be played is a back away. It's going to restrict what kind of defenses your opponent is going to play against your power blows. If they don't have anything, other than a back away, or if they do have other things besides a back away, they're not going to be able to play those unless they can get around that location. Well, that's going to do it for this first video in the new series, Immortal Spotlights. Those were the best cards that I think that comes in Slan Quince's set. Those are two of the best weapons I think you should use when you're going to build a Slan deck. They offer a good strategy and good synergy with that Slan Quince deck. I think that those cards are definitely his best ones. I think those two weapons are the best weapons to go with Slan. They offer a fairly straightforward strategy when it comes to playing Slan. He's not a super complicated immortal. Basically, you're just going to be power blowing every single turn, and you want to find a way to make those power blows hard to deal with. That's why I threw in two of those weapons, as well as some of the location and the generic challenge event. So I think if you were to kind of work that to your advantage and tweak it to how you like it, I think you can come up with a pretty powerful and potent Slan Quince deck. So if you're going to build a Slan deck, I would highly suggest using those cards. They're going to help you. That's why I think that they are the best in his set. This is going to be a long series because I'm going to go over every single Immortal that I have in my collection, and I do have quite a bit. So we're going to talk about the best cards that come in each of these Immortal sets and a little bit of strategy to go with it. I want to keep the videos to a minimum. I don't want them being super long. These are not in-depth strategy guides for these Immortals. We're just Immortal spotlighting their best cards in their set and a brief little overview of some kinds of strategy that you could use when building these Immortals. I'm really looking forward to this series. I hope you guys are too. We're going to talk about some of the coolest Immortals in the game and what their cards have to offer. I think it's going to be really fun. We're going to really dive into some of the best cards that these Immortals have to offer, why I think that they are the best. So I really hope you guys are looking forward to this. It's going to be super fun. I look forward to making these videos for you guys. This is a brand new series, Immortal Spotlights. I hope that you are looking forward to it just as much as I am. Consider becoming an Immortal today and hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future Highlander CCG content. We are on the road to 500 subs. We just reached 109 and it blows my mind. So consider becoming an Immortal today and hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future Highlander CCG content. If you liked this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you hated this video, leave it a thumbs down. Tell me down in the comments maybe which Immortal you would like to see me spotlight next, and tell me your thoughts on, hey, if you've ever built a great Slan deck, I would love to hear it. Be on the lookout for that next video. Don't lose your heads out there, and remember, there can be only one collectible card game.